Hello, I hope you're well. I have some news for you. There are only 28 days left until 28 school days left until your exam. So that's not very long, is it? But hey, don't worry, because you've got a couple of days off and I'm sure you're going to use them incredibly well. So please introduce yourself, say hello in the comments. It'd be great to know who's here, and I'll crack on and get on with some quizzing. So we're going to look this time at operating systems. Before we do that, let's go back and look at some previous quizzes that we've done. Hi Dom, how are you? Thank you for coming. You are a regular. And we've got Hayden. Hi Hayden, how are you doing? Good to see you. I'm pleased you've come actually, because this is one of those topics which on the face of it is really easy, because it is, because we use operating systems all the time, but it's also sometimes you think, what do they mean by this question? I can't think of 5 things that an operating system does. So this is actually quite handy. So all that waffle leads us to this question. Pick the statements which are true for a mesh network. Do we have any idea at all? Is that A, is that B, or is that C for a mesh network? Let's see, we've got 5 people lurking. We've got a few in now. So let's have a look. We've got Decent, how you doing? Well done, thank you for coming. So we've got Hayden who says B, we've got Dom who says A, we've got Decent who says A, and Decent has come back with a B. So what do we think? Who else? We've got a few there. You see, Paul Burner is relieved, Decent, because he missed you so much last week. He pined for you last week, in fact. So should we see what the answer is? The answer is, in fact... Oh, Ishak, hello dear man, how are you? Nice to see you. Let's find out. The answer is in fact C. So maybe that's something you could go and revise. But that's good to discover the stuff that you don't know. So go back and look at those networks, at the different types of networks and the advantages, disadvantages, and how they are set up. All right, let's push on to this one. What is the role of a web server? We're now up to 10 in, so do say hello. What do we think? What's the role of a web server? It's okay, even the best of us, Hayden, even the best of us. What's the role of it? To control centralized access to website data, including content and layout. Good to see that the rivalry is back. What have we got? We've got 12 in now, which is good. Let's have a look. We have got Dom who says C. I can see that Ishak's put his answer in. It comes through a bit later. We've got Hayden who said C. We've got Decent who said C. Any more for any more? What level of confidence do we have on this, guys? Let's have a look. So the answer is dun dun dun. Oh, I'll build it up and then not give you the answer. Oh, come on. It likes to do this. Let's go. The answer is A. To control. So you've said to request a specific. Now, listen, this is quite complicated because C, to request a specific web page from a web host and display the results, to control centralized access to a website, data, including content and layout. Yeah, that is correct. You're absolutely spot on, Hayden. That is what C is. Have I got yours up there? C's the browser. So there's a great deal of accuracy here. So go back and make sure you're happy what a web server does. It actually controls, it's a centralized control mechanism to access website data. Okay, usually for it's all part of. It's not. This is a pre-operating system quiz. And the purpose of this, by the way, thank you, Hayden. What would I do without you, honestly? So, Ishak, this is, make a note. If there's stuff here where you're going, I don't know this, tick that off your list and go and look at what these are, okay? So this is a really quick recap. I do it every week, though. So this is to find out what you do and what you don't know from what's come before and from what might come in the future. What is meant by hosting? What do we think? A service that translates alphabetic names into IP addresses. A service that allows individuals and organizations to make their website available on the www. Or we've got Dom who said B. Or a service that transmits data in a network. we've got 12 in. Ishak's come back with B. This is looking more hopeful. Come on, computer, wake up. We've got Ishak coming in with B. We've got Hayden with B as well. And we've got a whole handful of Bs for Paul Bernaphone. You guys are absolutely outstanding. Okay, let's push on and do this next one. Hi, Krish, well done. What's this? We've got 16 in, that's good. Do say hello if you're here, don't be shy. Well, welcome, Krish. What is cloud computing? Using the internet to communicate with others, storing hard copies of the data as a backup. Oh, they're in quickly. Dom is saying C. Using the internet. So is Decent saying using the internet to store and access data and programs remotely. He's doing well. So let's see. The answer is it's C. That is really, really good. So well done with that. Okay, this one, I've been asking this one every single time, so let's see if you are able to get this nasty one right. So can you tell me what the names of these registers are? No pressure. What do we think? What do we think it is? No pressure. Okay, so Deason has said M-A... Oh, let's put it up on the screen. Deason said... Oh, you've got me there. M-A-R, M-D-R, A-C-C, P-C. Yep, that's the order that Deason's got. Stores address where data will be read. Stores data fetched from memory. We've got... Let's have a look. That was Deason. Then we've got Hayden said A was the MAR. Decent said shush, but that was to Paul Bernaphone. Then we've got Dom who said MAR, MDR, ACC and PC. So you agree with Decent. We've got Hayden says BMDR. We've got Ishak who's thinking, which is good, always a bonus. And we've got ACC and PC. Shall we see if you are correct? So we had MAR, MDR, which was right, and then AC and PC. So that is absolutely outstanding, because I reckon that's going to be one of the first questions in there. So well done. You have all passed that with flying colours. Let's push on and let's jump into the topic. Today's topic is operating systems. As I said earlier, it's one that looks to be really simple, but actually coming up with all of the functions of an operating system can be quite difficult when you're sat there in the exam. So you will need, although you know these, if someone told you, you might find it hard to remember them. And it's quite easy to overlook some of these lists. So this is 1.5. We've only got the ethics and the the cultural environmental stuff to do afterwards in paper 1, and then we're on to paper 2. So this is from the spec. It's user interface, memory management, multitasking, peripheral management and drivers, user and file management. So those are the key areas in this topic, and I'll jump in and tell you what you need to do. So you need to know the functions of an operating system and the features of a user interface. The user interface is the thing that you're using now on your phone or your computer. It's what I'm using to navigate, okay, to navigate around my screen. And we'll talk a bit about multitasking and the fact that the OS, the operating system, which I'll call the OS to save time, actually is responsible for managing the memory and how it allocates memory. And that'll take us into virtual memory, a story we'll revisit shortly. Then we'll need to look at how data is transferred between devices and how that's got to be managed as well. And then the allocation of accounts, so setting up an account, access rights, security, all that sort of stuff. And then some of the things that are obvious but difficult to list, like file management, naming, allocating folders, saving, pasting, all that sort of stuff, okay? All of that sort of stuff which saving, opening files, all right? So we'll have a look at that shortly. So let's jump in and do a 10 minutes each. I think today should be a reasonably short one, but there's a fair amount of material to get through. So I've tried to cut this down to make it as simple as possible. System software, the sort of highlights is that it oversees the computer system. And one of the main things that it does is that it actually maintains the system. So down here, this one here. So if you've got to describe what it does, you can say that it maintains the system. It also controls the internal and external hardware. And we'll talk a bit more about that word at the end there, drivers. I'm sure you've heard of drivers. Not as in Uber drivers, but drivers that are little pieces of software that sit between the OS and a peripheral device, like a printer that you use. And you'd set the drivers up when you install the device. It also, the OS allows there to be I'm down here, provides a platform for apps to run and the interface for you to use. And we've got two kinds. So this idea up here of multitasking, this is the notion that when you're computing, you are able to do more than one thing at a time. The reality is you can't do more than one thing at a time, but it's the illusion that you're doing more than one thing at a time, and that's because the OS allocates resources. All right, so we've got two sorts of system software, the OS and utilities, and we'll jump in and have a look at those in a bit more detail. Right, first of all, on the right-hand side here, this is the OS. The point here is applications don't speak directly to the hardware. They don't talk to your CPU. They don't have anything to do with the motherboard. The go-between is the operating system. So it's the software on which all of the other software sits. Okay, so it provides a really important service. So this is you up at the top here, the user. This is the application you're using, whether it's a web browser or Word. And then this is the OS, and it's the OS that sits between the application and the hardware. So for the application to get to the hardware, it's got to go through the OS, all right? So that is how that works. It is the first piece of software to load after the BIOS. Do any of you genii know what BIOS stands for? Okay, user interface provides users with an interface to interact with the computer. And we've got three sorts of interfaces. So now we're talking about the screen that you look at and how you interact with the computer. And there are different flavors. I always use the word flavor. They have no taste, but there are different ways of doing it. The first one, ooh, Dom, look at you. You are an absolute superstar. It is the basic input-output system. I applaud you. And in fact, I applaud all of you because now you've all come in very quickly. There's about a 9-second delay there. That's outstanding. All right. Very, very good. So we've got three types of interface that you're going to need to be able to describe and also talk about the benefits and drawbacks of each, okay? So let's start with the one that is Windows, the one that is your phone, the one that we generally use the most often, and that is the graphical user interface, this one here. Now, a couple of things. It's familiar on most devices, it's easy to use, and it consists of WIMP. It doesn't mean that it's hopeless in a fight, it means that it consists of windows, icons, menus, and pointers, all right? WIMP. It's a good way of remembering it. So if you can imagine remembering some sort of a WIMP, windows, icons, menus, pointers, that's what it consists of. So if you're asked to describe a graphical user interface, you can enlarge that acronym and come out with windows, icons, menus, pointers, all right? So what does it consist of? Well, it features a desktop where applications and objects are represented by icons. Windows, icons, mouse and pointers. That's a good question. No, the M is, actually, Hayden, that's a really good question. You always ask good questions. The M does stand for menus because there are drop-down menus that you can access. So the mouse is actually the pointer. So the pointer is the mouse, the cursor that you move around the screen. That's the pointer that you control with your mouse. But the mouse is the peripheral device, and the pointer is the thing that appears on the screen. That sort of, what is it? It's a pointer. It's an arrow. The arrowhead that appears that you can change on your screen, that is the pointer, okay? So the windows, icons, and menus, when you click on a drop-down menu and it appears with a list of things, that's your menu, okay? So it's a menu, yep. So, good. But I'm glad you asked because it's something that's so obvious we tend not to go away and learn it, because this, on the face of it, you think, I know about operating system, I use them all the time. But anyway, so that is the, can I explain WIMP again? Yeah. So WIMP, if you're describing the features of a graphical user interface like Windows, it consists of, as in Windows software, right? it consists of windows, because when you open an application, it opens in a new window, so that's why they're called windows, okay? The icons are those squares that you double click on, like the shortcuts, so that would be an icon. A menu is when you click on a line and then a menu opens beneath it with a list of words. So like in Word, where it'll say, you've got the edit menu, you can go in and do various things, or the file menu where you can do open, close, save, export. Yeah, so those are the sorts of menus that you can that you can use. It's a good question, because I kind of thought that was obvious, but that's the problem. It's not obvious. So Windows icons, menus I've done, and pointers, that is the cursor. So I'm wiggling around the cursor here. This is the cursor, and that's the pointer. All right, so that's what the pointer is. So if they get you to describe a graphical user interface, use the WIMP. EPOS is electronic point of sale. Where are you getting EPOS from? Oh, right, yeah, electronic point of sale. You're getting it from my slide. I'll tell you about that now. But we're on to menu-driven devices. You're driving me forwards. So we've got three flavours, right? The first one being the GUI, the graphical user interface. The menu-driven interface, think about old Nokia brick phones and cash point machines, all right? Hole-in-the-wall machines where you extract money. What are they called in America? I can't remember. So these are where you've got a limited choice of options, all right? A limited choice of options. And you choose from a limited number of menus, and they're very popular on ATMs. Thank you, Dom. I couldn't think what it was, ATMs, because they've got the ATM stands for automatic teller machine. Because in the States, if you go into a bank and there's someone working in a bank who's sitting behind someone working bank, they're called a teller. That's what they're called. We call them bank clerks, although we don't have so many of them. Yeah, in the States. Yeah, that's right, decent in the States. So menu-driven interface, where you're choosing from one of a smaller number of options, and you click on that option, or you select it. Linux is another operating system, is the answer to your question. So it's another way. So you can, rather than installing Windows on a computer, you can install Linux. Linux is free, it's open source. You tell me, Ishak, what does open source mean? Because that's something they'll pop into the exam. Okay, so very popular on early mobile phones and used in cash machines. The last one is the one that you see when you are coding. It's a command prompt. When you see hackers working in a film and hacking into a terrible big company, all you can see is them typing in code, and that's the command prompt. And of course, all Windows pre-80s were command prompts. That's how you would actually have to write in the commands themselves. But then when Windows came out, that was the first. It wasn't the first actually. Acorn had one before then. But anyway, that was the first sort of mass-produced graphical user interface that really took on worldwide. It was actually copied from a British Acorn system, but let's not go there. So you've got command line interface as well. That's just typing code directly into the computer. So open source software, to answer my own question which was, what's open source software? Open source software like Linux means that the source code, so actually the code behind the program, is freely available. So you can go in and you can change the course code, the source code. So I don't know whether you've mucked around with OBS. OBS is a streaming software that's free. It's an open source. It's an open source product, which means you can go in and write modules to add to it. So usually there's a big community who work together, and Moodle's another sort of option there. So that's open source software for you. Go and Google open source, because you need to know what it means. So those are your three choices of interface. Really quickly, doesn't it mean anyone can crash the site? Well, it's not so much a site. So say, for example, in the case of Linux, it means that, Stack Overflow, that's absolutely spot on. So that's sort of, that's one of the places they hang out. But say, for example, OBS, because I was using OBS, I've got a thing called Ecamm Live that I'm doing this with now, which is much easier to use. OBS has got a gigantically steep learning curve, but it's a really cool product. But I can't bring the comments up like this, which is why I like this Ecamm Live thing that I'm using. But there's a huge following, a huge community for OBS. And so say, for example, someone says, I would like a module that enables you to be able to use this camera with it, and it can't currently do it. And then somebody will write the code, submit it, and then you can use that on your computer, okay? So Mozilla Firefox was another example. So there are lots of examples of open source software, and sometimes people make a module for it, an add-on for it, a plugin as they're called, and they charge for it, and sometimes it's free. All right, but it's people helping each other out, really. So graphical user interface, pluses and minuses. Up here, it's easy to use, not hard to learn, doesn't require specialist knowledge, but it can be quite inefficient for complex functions. So say, for example, the guy who manages the system at Hazelwick, he had a problem with the printers that they kept crashing out. So he wrote a script, he wrote the code to fix that, and that was something he had to go and do at the command prompt, because there wasn't a piece of software. He knew what he wanted to do, but there wasn't a piece of software made that could manufacture that could do it. So he wrote it, and then he uses that on our system. So it gives you way more scope to solve problems, but you do need to have specialist knowledge. All right, menu-driven interface. It's easy for all users, and it's a limited range of functions. I mean, anyone can use a cache point. It's very simple to use, but the problem is it's only good for a limited number of functions. I mean, think about a washing machine. That would be a good example. You wouldn't have a graphical user interface on a washing machine. You could do, but there's no point. A menu-driven interface does enough. And then you've got command line interface, where you're at the command prompt and you're simply typing in code. It's efficient, it's powerful. It's actually the best way of interacting with a computer, but you need to know what you're doing. You have to have expert knowledge. So those are the pros and the cons. Right. I'm going to speed up. Something else the OS is responsible for is managing memory, RAM. So it manages the RAM, and it can release RAM for new processes. So for example, if you start doing a new process, and a process that you started has now finished, it can reallocate the RAM to those processes. It's also responsible for managing virtual memory. Who can stick in the comments what virtual memory is in a sentence? Covered it a few times. Virtual memory. They love a virtual memory question, often a 4 or 5 marker. So it will manage virtual memory for you. It also allows multitasking. And this means the ability to use more than one program at a time. Like right now, I've got a browser working, I've got Ecamm Live on, I've got Adobe Acrobat working here to show you the slides. Yeah, Ishak, that is a good one. You've got it there. That is outstanding. Where are we? Ishak got that right. Where RAM is full. Yeah, writing on a hard drive, exactly. So using, yeah, that Hayden, by the way, that is outstanding. Hayden's point here, thrashing is what it's called. Is the damage that it causes to your hard drive, because RAM's designed to be read and written to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times, okay? Whereas your hard drive, it's not designed to do that. It's designed to be read to and written from, but not the number of times that RAM is, because RAM is sort of emptied each time that you turn your computer off. It's deleted, isn't it? Because it's volatile. You guys know a lot. This is good. So thrashing a hard drive as RAM. So it is bad for your hard drive. Yes, they did, didn't they? They did. That was highly amusing. So thrashing your hard drive, that is virtual memory. And then, but let's not be too smug. We don't want to upset Ishak. Allows multitasking by managing the CPU's processes so several programs can run at once. So that's the multitasking bit. So don't forget to incorporate that into your answers. Next thing, what does it do? Something else is peripheral management. Peripherals are devices that you attach to your computer, like printers, scanners, speakers, mice. All of these are peripheral devices. Some can be wired, some connect via Bluetooth, some even connect via Wi-Fi. It just depends what peripheral you have. So the operating system controls these devices, and it allows the programs to access them. And this is via little bits of code called device drivers. So device drivers are little pieces of code, software, which sit between your operating system and the peripheral device. All right. So when a new printer is released, the printer company will usually will create a driver which then enables the main operating system to talk to it. So when you install a printer, it will say which operating system are you using. If you're using Mac, it'll install the Mac drivers. If you're using Windows, it'll install the Windows drivers. If you're using Linux, it'll do the Linux drivers. They don't often include Linux, but anyway. So drivers are software. This is what they do. So if you're wondering about drivers, this is the definition down there. Where am I time-wise? 5.2. Okay, we're doing okay. So that's what a driver does. They haven't done a driver question for a couple of years. So that's standing out as something that they haven't been near. Now it gets easier. Other areas, other things the OS can do. Manage users. So you can create user accounts. And of course, you can add multiple user accounts to one computer. You can also manage the access levels. So for example, you could create an account for a child where they're not able to access certain applications, or administrator rights, and so on. Okay, so you can create those access levels within different accounts. You can also manage the settings in the user profile, and it provides a method for the users to gain access to the system. That didn't work out quite so well, okay? So that's the user management side of it. And as long as you know a handful of those, you'll be fine in the exam. Then we've got file management. This is the one that is the most obvious, but people... Oh, hello, Pablo. Didn't know you were here. Hello, welcome, dear man. Nice to see you. 20 in, that's good. So file management. This list, you will find that this is really obvious, but make sure you actually are able to produce this list. So file management means managing the files in secondary storage, because obviously your files, when you create them, they'll sit in RAM, but you save them to secondary storage, okay, to your hard drive. So files are stored in folders, and the file system allows these things to happen. Open files, creation of files, searching for, deleting files, restoring deleted files, moving files, and copying files, okay? So file management. All of those are obvious, but if they asked you to talk about the features or characteristics of file management, it would be these guys here that you would need to bring up. Opening, creating, searching within, restoring, moving, copying, deleting, okay? And they've done 4 or 5 markers on this before, so, and again, that wasn't in last year's paper. Not that it always works that way, but it wasn't. Okay, we have actually got there, which I'm very, very pleased about, because that was quite a lot of material to get through. So let's jump in and do a little bit of quiz time. Okay, this is a fill in the gap question. A is the most important software that runs on a computer. So just to repeat, A is the most important software that runs on a computer. Hope you appreciate the new sound. That took an... Oh, you've already done it. We've got Dom who says D. We've got Decent who says D. We've got Hayden who says D. And we've got Ishak who says D. Shall we see if you are all correct? And Pablo who said D as well. You are all absolutely outstanding. Right, let's push straight on then. Without any further ado, even, what type of software is needed to control the computer's hardware? It wasn't a massive build-up. What type of software is needed to control the computer's hardware? What do we think? Ooh, we've got some answers. D for decent, you were right with that previous one, and so were you, Pablo. Right, Ishak has said A. Any more takers? What do we think? Ishak said A. Pablo said A. Dom said A. Shall we see if you guys are right? The answer is A. And Decent, you also said A, and so did you, Dom. That was outstanding. Okay, what about this? To allow a user to interact with an operating system It must have a... It must have a... What must it have? Ooh, Ishak. You guessed. You guessed correctly, though. Okay, Hayden said B, Pablo said B, Ishak said B, and Dom said B, and Decent said... Well, you guys must be right. You can't all be wrong, can you? You are all absolutely outstandingly right. What about this one? Which type of user interface contains Windows icons, menus, and pointers? Windows icons, menus, pointers. Which one do we think? Welcome to the most annoying piece of music known to mankind. Ooh, we've got some answers. So Decent said B. Ishak said B. Pablo, I think, said B. Paul Berner, what a handsome man, said B. Shall we see what the answer is? The answer is B. That is outstanding. Okay, we're almost there. Right, what about this one? Dividing a task so that the operating system appears to multitask is dealt with under... So can you see there, that's quite a nice list of the stuff that you need to know. Processor, file, peripheral and memory management. These are features of an OS, things that an OS does. Hayden has said A. Do we agree with Hayden or not? What do we think? Let's see, Dom has said D. Ishak said E, which is an interesting choice, Ishak. Decent said D, Ishak said D this time, and Paul Berner has said B. Well, we have a split jury. The answer is C, okay? And I think, hey, you all get one wrong. So that one comes under peripheral management, the multitasking, okay? All right, let's push on. This one. Come on, computer. An OS will allocate sections of RAM to the process as part of... You're right, everyone did get it wrong. Honestly, you can't get the stuff, can you? This one is so easy. Hayden's gone for L. I think Hayden's been kidnapped. He's gone for L, which I think is interesting. I think it's a curious choice.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Okay, 19 in. Welcome all those of you who are hiding in the background. So we've got L. Good. So Hayden with a D. Dom with an A. Pablo this time D. This time it's D. I love your certainty. Ishak D. Decent D. D for decent. I mean, what can go wrong? It is D for decent. Good. You're absolutely right. That is exactly what it is. So let's push on. I think this is the very last one. Very last one today, 1902, 32 minutes in. What about this? If an OS has the ability to run more than one program simultaneously, what is this called? Multi-program? Multitasking? Or multi-user? What do we think? So the very first person in here was Pablo with a B, and Dom with a B, and Decent with a B, and Hayden with a B, and Ishak with a B. Shall we see if you are all correct? Whoop, you are. Let's go back. You were all absolutely spot on. All right. Guys, we've done incredibly well. So listen, well done for giving up your time to listen to me droning on. All of the live streams are now on YouTube with chapters. So make sure that you... I recommend go and find the J277 syllabus, because you look at it and go, oh, I know most of that. Have a scan through it, see which bits you're struggling with, and then reference that to my my videos on YouTube where I list what they are. There are chapters that I've set up in inside each one, so you can find exactly what you need to do. Because we did. Yes, I know, Dom. You didn't have your trio today. I thought they were going to be doing a bit more computer science. We did a bit of binary to denary, and we did hex as well. A lot of students had forgotten how to do hex to denary. So that is on there as well. Binary shifts, people can remember which way to go, so go and have a look at that. So that's the way to go. They were bunking the live stream. It's very upsetting. So guys, I will see you in exactly 1 week. Please come along again. It has been great to see you. I will see you all again next time. Have a nice day off tomorrow, you lucky devils. Do some work. See you next week. Bye bye.